One day in the early 70s, over a beer at the pub, 5 guys got together and had a great idea to establish a club for the youth of Terrigal. The 5 men involved were Keith Conroy, a builder, Glenn Escott, also a builder, Bill Ray, a real estate agent, Wal Vickery, secretary of the Master Builders Association, and Graham Robinson, manager of a large hardware firm. Local reaction to the idea was explosive, and within weeks there were 300 members. Terrigal Wombrel Rugby League and Youth Club were born. The main sport was rugby league, but the club had netball, volleyball and baseball. The club even had a youth band. In 1975, the club entered a side in the local 3rd grade competition to make up the bye. And unfortunately, the other clubs decided to use the game as a trial for their 1st grade side, and some big scores eventuated. In 1976, the club entered its first ever 1st grade team into the Central Coast competition. In the under-18s that year, Sharks legend Dave Proust and Glenn Mud Simons played their first game for the Sharks. Prousty went on to play 280, and Mud, well, he retired in 1999 after 300 games, with Mud being the club's first ever point scorer. Not off to a very good start. The Sharks lost to the Yamina Bunnies 108 points to 0 in the 1st grade fixture. We got flogged every game, with Tom Lee often yelling out, "For God's sake, just tackle!" The 11th of July, 1976, is a historic day in the Sharks' history for 2 reasons. It was the opening of our very own oval, Brendan Franklin Oval. The club, well, it was granted 13 acres of reed-riddled, mosquito-infested, polluted patch of swamp at Beaufort Road, Terrigal. And materials were begged, borrowed and donated. We could finally play on our own turf. All the toll was worth it. The day had arrived, and what a day it was. Firstly, it seemed like the whole of Terrigal was at the ground. There was a grand march past of all the teams from netball to the Junior Rugby League boys. Now for the game. The boys, led by captain coach Barney, Greg Barnett, lined up against the entrance. Terrigal supporters were waiting for the usual 30-point pile-up, but the boys went off at half-time with a tight 6-5 lead. The second half was an absolute thriller. The Terrigal boys held their line, and the teams were locked at 8-all. Excitement mounted with only minutes to go. A scrum was put down. Nick Minos saw the line wide open, only 10 metres out. Nick, with glory written all over his face, poised to score, tripped over Keith Walker's legs as he fell out of the scrum. Nick had his chance to redeem himself when from dummy half he heard Westy calling for the ball. The fans were stunned when Alan West kicked the field goal on the hooter. Westy had kicked the Sharks into history. We won our first game, 9 points to 8, and the whole ground erupted. The celebrations commenced that night at Gosford Leagues Club. The coach, Barney, Greg Barnett, spent the night talking to his schooner. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. The following day there was a strike, so the boys partied on at the Terrigal Hotel. In fact, they partied all week. They drank out of the boot, and the legend of the Golden Boot began. A glass case was made, and Alan West's boots and socks were placed inside to typify the spirit of the Sharks that had got them through that very first season. 1986 is the other big year in our club history, with the under-18s and the 1st grade side both making the grand final. In the week leading up to the grand final, the well-drilled Woy Woy machine were the very hot favourites to win their 3rd successive premiership. Terrigal, under captain coach Dave McPherson, they're sticking to the same lineup that they used throughout the final series. The big 3 that can alter a game for the Sharkies in just a matter of minutes: Steve McCoy, Keith Cook and John Tiwa. McCoy's blistering speed and sidestep makes him Woy Woy's #1 target. The big winger, Tiwa, will be a handful when he's in full stride. In the middle, Terrigal has the best prop forward on the coast, Keith Cook. To start out a stellar day, our under-18s, led by their captain Paul McDonald, made Terrigal history by being the first team ever to make a grand final. Wyong scored the first try, then the Sharks hit back with a fantastic try by Guy Bezruko, with Billy Felton missing the goal and locking the teams at 6-all. David Frendon with a magnificent pass for beach ball, and he scores a try. Little did the fans know that would be the final score, with no points scored in the second half. Terrigal win their first ever grand final, 10 points to 6. And gutsy Malcolm Clements is named man of the match. And now it was time for first grade. The Sharks get off to a great start with giant winger John Tiwa flashing down the sideline, sending a pass inside. Matt Skinner scoops up the pass, dives over. Woy Woy hit back with a try by Steve Hall. For the third time in the final series, Terrigal found themselves behind at halftime. After the break, Mark Powell sent a pass to Cole Wormleaton, who scored a majestic try, sending the Sharks back in front. Woy Woy hit back with a try, and a thrilling finish was in store. Mark Powell again left the Roosters in total shock when he ignited Tiwa again. The big winger was pulled down 2 metres from the try line. The Sharks, they spun the ball wide, and powerhouse fullback Steve McCoy crashed over under the posts. Skinner, Soppy, Trevor Woods and captain coach Dave McPherson, they tackled everything in red and white. Right on full time, the Woy Woy Roosters went over the line, and after a long deliberation and the crowd all holding their breath, the referee and touch judges ruled double movement. Terrigal had won 16 points to 12. Dynamite centre Mark Powell was named man of the match. Almost 10 years to the day that Alan West kicked that field goal and won our first ever match, the club's supporters had waited for their moment of glory. Captain coach Dave McPherson, for the first time in Terrigal Sharks history, raised the Carlton Premiership Cup.